culinary theme. And our next speaker is Chantal Cooke. And she will talk about the passion for the planet. Chantal is an award-winning environmental journalist and broadcaster turned PR guru. And she is also on the board of the World Food Travel Association, where her particular focus is on sustainability and planet-friendly food. Okay, we can already see little fox on the screen. So Chantal, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely and sunny in Wales, so I shall send you some good vibes from the beautiful Welsh countryside. So as mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Passion for the Planet, and I am really passionate about making travel, which is something I absolutely love to do, more sustainable, more ethical, and more responsible. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today in relation to tour guiding. And then specifically, we're going to look about how being sustainable and embracing sustainability can actually help you build your business. Now, sustainability is one of those words which has been, I think, overused. I mean, I've been working in the sustainability sector since about the late 1990s. And in that time, I've seen our use of the word of sustainable or sustainability has increased a lot. That's kind of a good thing. It shows that we're more aware of it and more aware of the impact. But it's also been overused and kind of used for things that it doesn't really mean. And that's obviously a bad thing, because that's left us confused in some cases as to, well, is this sustainable, or is this thing, or, you know, I don't know. But it also means, of course, that if you make claims about sustainability and you can't really back them up with something that is genuinely sustainable, then it's what we call greenwashing. It's kind of, basically it's lying, but we call it greenwashing because that sounds nicer, doesn't it? So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how to avoid doing that as well. And in order to do that, I think we're going to start, and that'll be my next slide, please, with actually what is the definition of sustainability. So the next slide, please. So definition of sustainability is that basically at its basis, sustainability means acting in a way that allows us to continue doing that activity at the same level. So in other words, if we want to do something and we do it sustainably, then we would be doing it in a way that means we could keep on doing it at that same level, which means that we could do it, our children can do it, and our grandchildren can do it, and on it goes. So if you think of it in those terms and think, well, if I carried on doing this, could it go on forever? That helps you kind of get your head around what sustainability really means. And if we think about it in relation to the environment, then essentially it's a method of harvesting or of using a particular resource so that that resource is not depleted or permanently damaged. So in other words, other future generations can also use that same resource, or that same, not that same harvest, but can also continue to harvest. So those, how we have to think about sustainability is, if we take this action, can we continue to take this action? And that's really what it boils down to. And I think if we have that in our heads, it makes deciding what to do, what not to do, much, much easier. So next slide, please. So in terms of tour guides, I see sustainability as intersecting with your business in three specific ways. So there's the sustainability within your own business. So these are the actions that you in your business, and that doesn't matter whether your business is big or small, but it's the actions that you take within your business. How sustainable are those? Then the second area is the fact that travelers' desires for sustainability have shifted. They've been shifting since the early 2000s, but have really shifted quite considerably, obviously, since the pandemic. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, there's also how you, as a tour guide, can actually help change the world. And I will talk about that, because you really genuinely can. You're in quite a strong and unique position, and actually Eric did allude to this as well in his talk, to actually make a really substantial change in the world. So we're going to cover that as well. So those are the three things I want to cover in the next sort of 15, 20 minutes. So next slide, please. So let's start with what travelers actually want. Like, do they care about sustainability? Well, 87% of global travelers say that they want to travel sustainably, but over 60% say that they struggle to find sustainable options. And that's from the Sustainable Travel Report of 2018. So I think we'll have seen that those numbers will have increased since then. 14% of the world's population identifies as vegetarian. And if you include vegans and flexitarians, that increases to around 31% of the global population. That's a lot of people not eating meat. And that's important because meat and meat eating is highly unsustainable. So that's something that we're also going to talk about. That comes from the Global Ingredient and Out-of-Home Dining Trends from Nielsen. Eco-tourists tend to stay longer, they spend more, they believe they have a responsibility to respect their destination. In other words, they are exactly the kind of tourists that any area would want. So they are the kind of tourists we should be attracting and servicing better, because they're the ones that are going to have more respect for the area, and they're the ones that are going to be spending more. That piece of research came from Condé Nast Traveler. Some research from Credit Suisse Global Investor Report says that companies must deliver good social and environmental performance and engage in sustainable practices, or, and here's the kicker, the future of their business is at risk. And that doesn't matter whether you're a tiny weeny business, you know, a one-man band guide, as it were, or whether you're a big corporate with lots and lots of employees. The thing still applies. And then 92% of World Food Travel Association respondents say that providing a sustainable experience was important to them or very important. And yet, only 38% think that food tourism as an industry is actually doing a good job of providing sustainable experiences. And that was from the State of the Food Travel Industry from the World Food Travel Association in 2019. Again, I would expect the next piece of research to show that those numbers have increased. So really what that research is showing us is that consumers want sustainability. So basically, we have to offer it to them, or else, as I said, we're going to lose business or we're going to risk not standing out. So next slide, please. So what I want to do is I want to talk about sustainability in your own business, because that's where you really want to start. And when we do the right things, we feel good, and the people that we work with feel good. In other words, the clients that we take, or the restaurants that we patronize, or the shops that we take our clients to, or whatever, that is a feel good thing, because people want to do the right thing. Fundamentally, we all want to do the right thing. And when we do it, we feel really good about it. And if you think about it from what people go home with when they've left an area, they might say, yes, this building was beautiful, or I learned some fascinating history, or I had an amazing meal. People often talk about the food they eat. But overall, the key thing is, did they feel good? That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make them feel like they had a fantastic time, even if they can't remember the individual little bits of that. So this is why sustainability is so important right across the board, is because it will help you make your clients feel good. So next slide, please. So in terms of sustainability within your own business, sorry, next slide, thank you. Let's look at your own business first. Let's really because if you're going to take it seriously, you have to start with yourself. You can't sit there and be completely unsustainable and yet somehow claim that you're offering a sustainability business, or kind of talking about it if you're not really, as we say, if you're not walking the walk, you're just talking the talk. You need to walk the walk as well. So in your own business, take a look at your processes, the practices that you're involved in, the things that you purchase. For example, if you have an office, whether that office is within your own home, or whether it's a big external office in a big block or something, start there. Look at what you can reduce. Can you reduce energy consumption? Can you reduce plastic waste, for example? Can you actually use secondhand rather than brand new? When you're tempted to buy something, do you really need that? Could you have something else that's more environmental, or actually just carry on using what you were using beforehand? So it takes a little bit of thought, that's true, but actually once you get your head into this idea, I actually find it quite interesting. Maybe I'm strange, but I find it quite interesting to do that. But also I found that it saved me a lot of money. So it can have quite an important impact in that sense from a business as well. And I know that probably some of you are thinking, yeah, I know, I've heard already, reduce energy, drive less, less waste. It's, I know it all. And I think we probably do know it, is the truth. And I know that sometimes we think, yes, but isn't there something big that I could do? Isn't there something really important that I could do? And the truth is that the important thing to do is those little things. If you cut down the amount of petrol that you use just a little bit, if you cut down the amount of meat that you eat, even just a little bit, if you cut down the amount of energy that you use just a little bit, that makes a huge, huge difference. So please don't feel like, yeah, I know, which I understand. Please do kind of think about really, what could I do? Could I reduce the amount of paper? Could I reduce the things that we're buying, the heating and stuff like that, or the cooling and so on? What about if you have branded sweatshirt or something that you wear, or a branded jacket when you're guiding? Is that something that you could buy from a sustainable company, from a company maybe that manufactures locally and has really good ethical credentials? Could you wash your uniforms in non-chemical washing powders, for example? There are all of these kinds of things that don't sound like a lot, but they really do make a difference. And then the other thing is, remember that you don't have to be perfect. So as an example, I had to buy a new car recently, and I couldn't afford, and it wouldn't work for me to buy an electric car, which would have been the most environmental option. I do a regular journey from Wales, where I live, to central London, and an electric car can't manage that. It's a good 6 hours. So I couldn't do that. So instead, I chose the best that I could, so the car that I needed, but with a smaller engine and with eco options on it. And I try to be careful where I drive it, and I drive it at a slightly lower speed that's more optimal for the petrol. I bought one with the lowest possible emissions. So it's not perfect. No, it's not. But it is being better than not doing anything at all. And the other thing to think about is that if you get something wrong, let's say you can't be perfect on this particular thing and there's nothing you can do to be environmental, don't then throw up your hands and say, well, doesn't matter, I can't be, just chuck it all out, doesn't matter, kind of thing. We wouldn't do that if we were trying to lose some weight. If I then went out and had some cake, I wouldn't go, oh, well, that's it, now I can never lose weight. I'd go, okay, I had some cake today, tomorrow I won't have some cake. So you can think about it in the same way when you're thinking about doing things within your business to make it more environmental. The easiest, quickest ways to do that, I'm sorry, I seem to have disappeared. Oh, for fuck's sake.
The technique is here, Chantal. So you turned off your sound, your video disappeared. I hope that your laptop didn't fall down. So we are improvising a little bit. So we talk about food, we have to imagine, so we have to imagine you right now. Or not. No, I think that somebody from our team will jump on the stage. Just a minute, we are back in a few dance on the stage. So
okay, so Viola and I will chat a little bit about sustainability while we wait for Chantal. That's us. Can I go ahead, Sebastian?
Here we go.
Can we go ahead, Sebastian?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think some of the points that Chantal said, well, let me just remove my mask. I can breathe easier. So some of the points that Chantal made were quite interesting about us as tourist guides, as individuals and our small businesses, using sustainable products, even for our shirts. But Viola's passion, for those who don't know, is sustainability. So I'm going to put some questions to Viola as a tourist guide in sustainability while we wait for Chantal. So Viola, as a tourist guide, I know we can make an impact with our tourists and our guests, but what's something small we can do as an individual tourist guide, as a small one person? What's the small little step, first step we can take to sustainability?
I see always, and thank you for putting me on the spot, but I really love the subject, and we've included it into our training now as well. And if you want any kind of updates on it. So, you know, it really is, and Chantal put the finger on the pulse there. Obviously, there's 3 bubbles. You know, the bubble in the middle, that's ourselves, and we can completely control what we do, as she said, what we wear, how we wash our clothes, you know, what car we choose. So that's really entirely up to us. And okay, it might not make a huge big of difference, but it will as a starting point. Then the next bubble around that is we can influence others. So it's really, and we as tourist guides, who are our others? I mean, colleagues, but also, of course, our visitors. So, you know, it really, the one thing we can do, that's another thing we need to understand, it depends on where you are. Because sustainability, okay, it's a global issue, but it needs local solutions. So, example, when I go on beach walks now in Scotland with my customers on the Scottish Islands, we take bags and we collect plastic. We don't collect shells anymore, or we don't collect any kind of natural aspects there, but we collect sadly the plastic that washes up.
That's a very nice small thing to do and a first step for individual tourist guides. So Chantal, I think you're back with us. Can we hear you, see you?
Hi, can you hear?
Are you there? Great. So we're going to hand back over to you to complete your presentation. We've just been discussing some of the points that you've mentioned, but we hand back over to you.
We just can hear you, we can't see you. We don't see that you.
Chantal, so we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
And we see that you even have no more video on your computer. Okay, I think she disappeared again. You have to continue.
So Chantal, if you can hear us, you can just let us know when you join again. But in the meantime, we will carry on our conversations from our side.
I think the sustainability question should be about the Wi-Fi connection.
So we will take questions from the audience shortly, but I think Viola, so you were saying you were picking up plastic with your guests. That's a really small step we can do. And what other suggestions do you have as a small step we can take?
Something that's global. But plastic bottles, for instance, and then I thought it was really, really inspired and nice that we got our conference presents. So fill up, and you know, we know where the facilities are. So encourage our visitors to use refillable bottles and tell them where the drinking fountains are, where they can fill up their bottles.
So just for those attending virtually who are not aware, in the welcome bags, we received a glass bottle from the Madrid Convention Bureau, and inside was a little brochure encouraging us to use the water in Madrid. Clean water, they have water fountains everywhere, and we can fill up our bottles with those glass bottles. So that was something that local that we could all do as an impact as participants in person at the convention. We have a question from the audience. Helga.
It's just an idea until we... good morning, everybody. It's just an idea. I really profit sometimes when we are stuck in a traffic jam in Paris, when I guide through Paris, and I see something about the selection of our waste, and I explain to my visitors how it works in Paris and how difficult it is to throw in the right waste paper box your waste, and that we are trying in this very complicated city how to get rid of our waste the most correctly way. And this is a theme that passionates my visitors, regardless where they come. Oh, how does it work? It's really something personal, individually. How does it work in Paris? How do you select where do you put the glass? Why there are or there are not containers? What are the difficulties? And this is something I would suggest if you are in a traffic jam and you don't know what to tell your visitors, you already described all the architecture and everything. Talk about sustainability, talk about this challenge. You can be 1 hour on your micro and you have still something to say.
Wow, I love that. Use sustainability as a filler next time. And maybe also come in, I know, James, you've got your hand up, to mention a rural example. We often get our visitors come to us and say, where are the bins here? And, there are no bins to be, we put our rubbish in. And then I explain we are in a national park and there are no bins here. So our policy is take your rubbish home and recycle them there where the facilities are.
Well, also what you've highlighted though is the lack of consistency in different cities and different countries with regards to recycling and gathering rubbish. Every city, every country works differently. So perhaps that's something that countries can look at. Let me just check with the tech team. Do we have Chantal with us? Great. Great, Chantal. So some of what you've already presented has sparked some conversation on our side, but we will hand back over to you to continue.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm not quite sure what happens, but I'm very rural in Wales and it's not always ideal here. Anyway, I'm going to jump straight to the next slide, basically, and point 2 of the 3 areas in which sustainability intersects with tour guiding. And that, because I know that you've covered actually the bits about your own business, and I was enjoying the few bits of the talk that I could hear, and especially the suggestion, which was I was going to mention, but I think it's great, is that when you haven't got something else to say, often you can talk about the sustainability, and that gives you a little bit more insight, or gives your client a little bit more insight into the area. So we'll carry on. So my second point, so the next slide, is about clients changing desires about sustainability. So earlier I shared with you some research about how travelers want to be more sustainable, but are finding it difficult to do that, and how that's something that's influencing their decisions about who they book with or where they go or what they do. So therefore, from your point of view as a guide and running a business, you need to be able to offer them something that also is more sustainable for them, because that will set you apart and give them a reason to book with you. And of course, as I said, it's a good thing to do and leaves them feeling good, because it's all about people feeling good when they travel. So for example, once you've looked at your own business, could you look at the tours that you offer? Could you make the tours themselves more sustainable? And one really easy way to do this is to look at the food that's involved in the tour that you're doing. So for example, and Eric did mention this a little bit in his talk, but if you take your clients to a restaurant to eat dinner or lunch or something, could you go to one that offers vegetarian or vegan options, or perhaps actually is, you know, a really fantastic vegan or vegetarian restaurant in your city? Because we know that food and farming are bigger than anything else when it comes to negative impacts on the environment. Bigger than travel, bigger than transport. Food and farming are the single biggest negative impact upon our environment, not partly from carbon emissions, which actually are huge. Again, they're the biggest carbon emitters, but it's not just about carbon emissions. It's about pollution. It's about land use. It's about habitat loss, all of these sorts of things. So if we can change the way that we eat and the way that we farm, then that will have the biggest impact, biggest positive impact on our environment. So not suggesting that everybody gives up meat tomorrow. You know, it's about cutting down. It's about being more sustainable. It's about not having every single meal is a meat meal. So again, if you can encourage your clients to eat that way, and I think you'll find as well more and more clients want to eat that way. If you remember the stat earlier that 31% of the global population identifies as not eating meat, that's a lot of people that don't eat meat. then you can be part of showing them how great non-meat foods are, of supporting those restaurants that are setting up, or perhaps going to coffee bars that offer plant-based milks as an alternative to dairy milk in their coffees and things like that. So you can be part of that change, but equally you can show your clients that actually you understand their dietary needs and you understand their desire to be more sustainable. So food is a big thing. And in fact, if you just did one thing on your tours and changed the food that you showed them and helped them try and introduced them to, that would make a massive, massive difference. But of course, you can also do things in terms of actually creating tours around sustainability. So it could be, and I know these are becoming more and more popular, tours that are trying vegan restaurants or trying different vegan foods in your area and things like that. I know, for example, I'm going to Barcelona in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm actively looking for a tour that will show me vegan Barcelona, because that's what I want to do. I don't want to eat the meat. I want to try new innovative vegan foods with that kind of Barcelona twist to them. Also, if you go to, I've been on tours in, say, for example, Copenhagen, where I've been shown what the city is doing to be sustainable. So we've looked at sustainable architecture. We've looked at where they're doing different types of water use, also using waste to turn it into power, to power homes and things like that. These are fascinating insights into a city that are different from the traditional look at the town hall, here's the beautiful cathedral, or something like that. Nothing wrong with those at all. I want to see those things too. And when I go to Barcelona in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go and look at Gaudi stuff too. Of course I am. But it's also really interesting to look at those other things within the city, the recycling, the urban gardens. For example, I remember going to Montreal and doing a whole tour on urban gardens. Absolutely fascinating how people were growing vegetables in these tiny little places around the bottoms of trees and pavements and things. Really, really important to think about those as perhaps different tours that you can offer that will match with people's desires and expectations now and set you apart from the competition, which is what we're obviously, you want to do as a business. You want to make yourself stand out. Okay, next slide, plus the one after, because we've missed a slide. So that brings me to the third thing that we talked about, and that's how you as a tour guide can change the world. Now that might sound a bit like, really? Or one person, I do tour guiding in my area. Why, how can I do that, basically? Well, it's actually relatively simple as a tour guide, strangely. It's, you look at your business first, absolutely. You think about the tours that you offer and you give clients what they want. Yeah, good, all good. But the thing that really will help change the world are the education that you give the clients when they're there, and also the places where you encourage them to spend their money. So if you encourage them to spend their money in sustainable shops, if you encourage them to visit things that have sustainability at their heart, or you go to businesses where you know the people there are doing their best to be more sustainable and more ethical, you are directing money and education and awareness towards those things. And you're in a really unique position to do that in your local area. So by doing that, you actually help to boost the industry as well. You actually help those other sustainable businesses to be more sustainable. You help people understand that's about sustainability and why it's so important. And so that is how you as an individual can change the world. And you give great stories. For example, I went to some amazing sustainability type shops when I was in Yangon in Myanmar. And these were all shops where local people, who obviously are much, very, very poor, struggling to survive, but local people had gone to the landfill site, found items on the landfill site, cleaned them up, and then repurposed them into new things. So I bought a beautiful purse made from plastic found on a landfill site. Now, not only did I feel great about doing that, it was fascinating to hear the stories about what that is and gave me an insight into how the people live. I could put money into the economy in order to help those people specifically, rather than just the money that I was spending on the posh hotel. And it's something that I come back and I talk about again and again and again because it was so amazing. The same with Montreal, where I visited lots of eco shops where they had these amazing locally made eco products like soaps and hand creams and lip balms and things like that. Again, something made me feel good, got me speaking to the local lady in the shop, understanding about artisans locally, and again, something that educated me at the same time. So you as a tour guide are in this unique position to be able to change your own businesses, to boost your business by giving clients what they want, but probably most importantly, really, when we think about the big picture, it's about helping to change the world. You're there to educate people, to introduce people to new ideas, and to direct in where they spend their money. And I think that's the thing I'd really, really like you to go home with. So just to finish off, is my final piece of advice would be, don't be put off if you think something is too big a problem. And that's the thing with the environment, is we often feel like it's just huge, like I can't do anything. In fact, it's easier just to say, ignore it and just carry on. I know that feeling. But the truth is, all these little steps that we take, all these things that we can do, every time we choose not to eat meat, every time we choose to spend our money with an environmental or ethical company, every time we choose not to use chemicals when we're washing our clothes, all of those things, every single time, makes a difference. And so those are the things, however small they are, that I would encourage you to do as a tour guide. So final slide. Just to finish up, I'd like to say, that all of these things are important for you to do and will make a difference, but don't forget to leverage them for yourself. You have a business to run, so you want to make sure that you make the most out of the things that you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with behaving in the right way and doing the right things and building your business and making more money out of it. So in order to do that, don't forget to tell people what you're doing to be more sustainable. Don't forget to shout about it on your social media. Put it on your website. Really, really talk about what you're doing. Don't try and overdo it. Be transparent. We're doing this much. We haven't succeeded on this yet. We're trying to do this, still trying to do it. Be open and transparent about it, but absolutely shout about it, because that is where you'll be able to build your business. That's what will help people understand, and that's what will set you apart. So thank you so much for listening and for putting up with the dreadful technology coming all the way from Wales. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy to share my contact details with you if you have any questions about sustainability. I'm always happy to answer those questions. So you can just email me direct and I'll be happy to do that. And also, as a journalist, I'm always looking for sustainable businesses to visit and write about and feature on the radio station and so on. So again, if you're interested in having your business featured and would like to talk to me about visiting, then please do get in touch. Again, thank you so much, and apologies for the technology. And as I said, happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Thank you.
So thank you for that, Chantal, and thank you for leaving your contact information. We have sort of run out of time, and you actually did answer some of the questions we got in the beginning. Taking those small steps, you gave us some great advice. You told us what we should be doing as tourist guides. So you really did address a couple of questions we received. I think, Chantal, from our side, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It was lovely to meet you virtually, and we hope that one day you can join us in person and share more of your valuable knowledge and experience. So thank you very much. And then for those who are joining us virtually, we're taking a short break. We'll be back this afternoon with 3 more speakers who are going to go onto a more practical side of how to basically do things. And we've got some information on the website. We've got lovely Indie Travel joining us as well. So please join us in an hour's time. And then please don't forget to join us tonight. We've got live streaming from our closing dinner. We'll be making some really nice announcements, most specifically who will be our host for our 20th convention. So please join us at Madrid time, 7:30 tonight, as we live stream those announcements.